Welcome to the lecture series in computer science. We are seeing a series of lectures in the subject Agile methodology. We will be seeing about what a Scrum framework is, what are the roles and responsibilities of the Scrum team, and the meetings that are available in a Scrum framework. It is as well a continuation of our previous lecture. In today's session, we will be seeing as the contents of the session, we will be listing the meetings that are available in Scrum, and we will see what a sprint is and what sort of sprint meetings are required, and then we will see the framework of Scrum. We will as well see the tools that are available for Scrum. We will see the advantages of using a Scrum and then the disadvantages of using a Scrum. Then first of all, as meetings of Scrum is concerned, we have different levels of meeting. The first and foremost meeting with respect to the top management is called as strategic meeting, strategic planning meeting. What does the top management do in a strategic planning meeting? It is they who has to say whether it is feasible, whether they can spend some money, whether they will be getting what sort of ROI that they will get. What is ROI, my dear students? Return on investments. What do they get and how much do they get, and within how many months or how many weeks will they be getting such a kind of return on investment, whether they are in a position to spend or not. So those things will come under this kind of strategic planning meeting. Then release planning. Release planning is, as we have already seen in a Scrum framework, a small features will be developed and it will be released. That is called as minimum marketable feature. Such features will be released at the end of each and every sprint. Between any two sprints, there will be a gap of 1 day or 2 days. That 1 day and 2 day is being kept to have the sprint review meeting, the retrospective meeting. For all those meetings, you have a sprint gap. So within that sprint, when you are going to release it, what is the feature that you are going to release? What is the weightage that each and every feature has? What is the value that each and every feature has? So everything will be discussed in this release planning. Then is the iteration review. Iteration, each and every sprint will have iterations. So how many iterations are there for this particular project, and what you are going to do, and you are not going to plan upfront. As far as Scrum framework is concerned, my dear students, you would have studied planning in your traditional life cycle model. Planning in a traditional life cycle model is totally different from planning in a Scrum framework. In a Scrum framework, which is part of the Agile software development, here we do not plan upfront. We plan as we go. What does it mean? Supposing we are going to go for a movie, and supposing if you see a fruit stall and if you want to have some cool drinks, you plan as you go. You have not planned when you started whether to drink cool drinks or whether to have a cup of coffee or whether to have ice cream or so on and so forth. So you plan as you go, you do not plan upfront. Such a kind of planning takes place in Scrum, and we will also be seeing such a kind of iterative planning will take place. And then iteration denotes repetition. How many times of repetitive work that you are going to do. And reviewing. Review denotes you would have completed one particular feature and you will be checking for correctness. You will be checking the code again and again, and you will be doing integration testing, regression testing many a times, because you want to give a bug free software or a bug free feature to the client for his own validation. Such a kind of review, you call it as an iteration review. Then you have daily Scrum. We will see what sort of questions will be asked in a daily Scrum. A daily Scrum meeting will be taking place for 15 minutes. It will be hardly for 15 minutes to 20 minutes, and It is also called as daily standing meeting. So, it is a daily scrum meeting. Then finally, you have one other meeting called as retrospective meeting. Now, we will see all those meetings in detail shortly. As a first thing, we will take up this daily scrum meeting, which is of usually a 15-minute duration. Daily in the morning, when you people come to the office, you will be having a daily scrum meeting. It will be conducted by the scrum master. So, only the scrum master and the team members, whoever is involved in the development part, will be there in the daily scrum meeting. What is the size of a scrum team? It is 7 plus or minus 2. What does it mean? Minimum the team size will be 5, maximum it will be 9. So, it is inclusive of the scrum master. So, it is a very short team. So, for a meeting, the scrum master will be conducting and the team members need to be present. So, if a scrum master is going to say that they are going to conduct the meeting by 7:30 a.m. in the morning, all team members should assemble in the convention hall or in the conference hall at the set time. There should not be any sort of latecomers, and only 3 questions will be asked by the scrum master to each and every individual whoever is part of the development team. So, I suppose you might be knowing the roles in a scrum framework. The roles are, there are only 3 roles that we saw. One was team member, other was scrum master, third one was the product owner. So, with the team members, only 3 questions will be asked. What was done the previous day? What work that you carried out the previous day? What is proposed to be done today? What sort of impediments that you have encountered? Impediments in the sense, what are the issues that have been identified by you? Where did you get struck yesterday? How you are going to overcome it? So, it is a team member, even if an issue happens, it is a team member by himself has to study across, has to correct those issues. So, only 3 questions are to be asked. What was done the previous day? What is it proposed to be done today? What are the issues that are identified? So, for answering these 3 questions, it will take hardly 15 minutes and people will be standing, no sitting in the conference room. People will be standing and they will be answering the question. They will go to their seats and start their works. Such a meeting is called as daily scrum meeting. My dear students, as far as scrum framework is concerned, it is a very important topic, and this question is so common in wherever you go. So, what is a scrum daily scrum meeting? What are the 3 questions that are imposed? So, you are supposed to do, you are supposed to say what was done the previous day, what is to be done today, what are the issues that are identified. These are the 3 questions to be answered. Then, now let us see what a sprint is. Sprint is to be heart of the scrum. It is because each and every release will happen at the end of sprint. A sprint takes place only a duration of 15 to 30 days. So, let us see, heart of scrum is a sprint. It is a time box of 2 weeks or for 1 month. 2 weeks in the sense it will be for 15 days. 14 days is 2 weeks and 1 day will be for some meetings. So, 2 weeks or 1 month, during which a potentially releasable product increment is created. A new sprint starts immediately after the conclusion of the previous sprint. Sprints consist of sprint planning, daily scrum, development work and sprint reviews and sprint retrospective. All these things are meetings. In a sprint planning, the work to be performed in the sprint is planned collaboratively by the scrum team. What is to be done today, how we are going to do, how many hours you are going to work. So, all those things will be addressed in the sprint planning. The daily scrum meeting is a 15-minute time boxed event for the scrum team to synchronize the activities and create a plan of the day. A sprint review is held at the end of the sprint to inspect the increment and make changes to the product backlog if needed. My dear students, I suppose you might be remembering what a product backlog is, what a sprint backlog is, what is a parking lot. So, a product backlog if needed. Then sprint retrospective occurs after the sprint review and prior to the next sprint planning. That is what I said. At the end of the sprint, you will be having a meeting that is called as sprint retrospective meeting. In this meeting, the Scrum team will be inspecting itself and will be creating a plan for improvements to be enacted during the subsequent sprint. So, this is what people do in a sprint. Then let us see what they are going to do in a sprint planning meeting. Sprint planning meeting focuses only on 2 questions, not much. Daily Scrum meeting focus on 3 questions. Sprint planning meeting will focus on 2 questions. What needs to be and what can be delivered in this sprint increment. At the end of sprint, what can you deliver? What sort of incremental feature that you could deliver to the client? That is said to be the first question, question number 1. Question number 2, how will the work needed for the execution of the sprint be achieved? What sort of resources you require? What sort of tools you require? How you are going to carry out and how you are going to give your execution in order to achieve a feature at the end of the sprint. So, only these 2 questions are asked in the sprint planning meeting. The inputs to the meeting are the product backlog. What do you mean by product backlog, my dear students? Product backlog is one which was kept in the parking lot, which you were not able to complete it during your earlier sprints. So, whether to take that backlog and whether to implement that backlog in this sprint or whether to keep it aside in the parking lot itself. So, that acts as an input to this meeting. How many product backlogs are still pending? How many backlogs are yet to be completed? So, that acts as an input to this meeting. Then the latest product increment. What sort of incremental feature you are given? Projected capacity of the team during the sprint. How many team members are going to work? Whether any sick people is going to be there, whether he should be kept in the team or whether a person to be removed due to since he is incorrigible team member. If he is an incorrigible team member, whether a particular team member has to be placed or whether he has to be removed. Past performance of the team. How well they performed in their last sprint, whether the same team or any sort of training is required. So, all these things act as an input to the sprint planning meeting. Then sprint review meeting. In a sprint review meeting, it is normally held for 2 hours for a 2-week sprint. After completion of a sprint review meeting will be conducted. It will be conducted for 2 hours and for 4 hours if the sprint duration is of 4 weeks. If the sprint duration is of 1 month. That is the reason in my earlier slides or my earlier lecture also I would have said there will be a small difference when carrying out 2 different sprints. Between any 2 sprints there will be a gap, 1 day gap, where in order to have a sprint review meeting, in order to have a retrospective meeting. So, in the sprint review meeting, the Scrum Master has to ensure that the meeting takes place. Any meeting, after the sprint, definitely there should be a sprint review meeting. The participants should understand the purpose of the meeting. The meeting is focused on the required agenda and it is to be completed within the required set duration. Sprint review, it includes the following aspects. Attendees include the Scrum team and key stakeholders as invited by the product owner. The product owner explains what product backlog items have been completed so far during the sprint and what has not been completed. The team should discuss what went well during the sprint, what were the problems that they faced, what were the problems that they ran into and how those problems were solved by them. That also they have to come out with a solution. The team should demonstrate the work that it has completed and should answer questions if any about the increment. The Scrum team then reviews the timeline, budget, potential capabilities and marketplace for the next anticipated release of the product increment. The outcome of the sprint review, it should be updated in an updated product backlog, which defines the probable product backlog items for the next sprint. These are the aspects that are to be carried out in a sprint review meeting. Then next is, let us see the tools that are available in Scrum framework. You have many different tools. I have listed a few tools. These tools are all third party tools. So if you want to have more and more details of these tools, you can take any of the tool, you can check it with your in the Google website. And I will tell you the most commonly used tool is the Jira. Jira Greenhopper tool is most commonly used. Mingle tool is most commonly used. Agile for Scrum is most commonly used, and iScrum is used. So Pivotal Tracker is used. So these are the version 1. Version 1 is also most commonly used tool. So these are the tools that are most commonly used. The other tools are Axosoft, Agile, Agile Cockpit, Jira, Greenhopper. Jira is also called as a Greenhopper tool. Mingle, Scrumwise, Agile for Scrum, Banana Scrum, Konagi, On Time Now, version 1, Agile Wrap, Daily Scrum, Intervals, Pango Scrum, Akinote, Agile Tracking Tool, Digaboard, iMeta Agility, Pivotal Tracker, Agile Agenda, Agile Task, EC Backlog, iScrum, PM Scrum. My dear students, day in and day out new tools creep in, but till date the most commonly used tools are Jira Greenhopper, Mingle, version 1 and iScrum and even Pivotal Tracker. So these are the most commonly used tools. For other tools, if you want, you can browse the website and you can get the details, because everything is said to be a third party tool. Then now let us see how the Scrum framework works, how it is. Here this one is called as a product backlog. PBL is given, product backlogs. So this has been maintained by the product owner. Who is a product owner, my dear students? The customer representative is said to be a product owner. Kindly make a note of it. Product owner is the customer representative who is part of the customer, who is part of your Scrum team, is said to be the product owner. These people, customer representatives, are hired by the customer directly. They will be part of the Scrum team. So here you have list of product backlogs. So wherein it will be given by the stakeholder liaison. Who is a stakeholder, my dear students? Stakeholder, anyone who is involved in the project is called as a stakeholder. Anyone who is part of your Scrum team is called as a stakeholder. Product owner is also part of Scrum team, so he is also a stakeholder. Team members is a stakeholder. Scrum master is a stakeholder. So they represented to the stakeholder. Now they go into the sprint planning. They forecast what are the lists that are available in this product backlog. Then they plan the work, that is, they take up the tasks and they place it as, how do they place it? In the storyboard, in the Scrum board. I suppose you remember seeing a Scrum board. How do they place it in the Scrum board? As sticky notes. So they will be placing it and the sticky notes. They will writing the task and they will be placing it as sticky notes, as user stories in the storyboard. Storyboard is also called as Scrum board. Kindly make a note of these terminologies. Storyboard is also called as Scrum board. Bigger story you call it as epic. When you break down, it is called as user stories. Then you have a development team. The team forecasts the work that is needed to achieve a sprint goal. Sprint goal, at the end of 15-day or 30-day duration, you are supposed to deliver a minimum marketable feature, MMF, to the client. So you have a sprint backlog. Within the sprint, how many backlogs are there? within the overall product, what are the backlogs are listed in product backlog. Within the same sprint, because of the impediments, because of certain issues, he or she would have not completed that part in the previous day. So that becomes a backlog, that acts as a sprint backlog. So how they are going to complete it? Then you have an iterative incremental development and delivery. So here you have sprint duration, it will be of 14 days, that is 2 weeks or maximum of 1 month. It will not be greater than 1 month, it will be lesser, it will be most probably it will be only 14 days. That is what the industry people follows, and it will be managed by the Scrum Master. He is similar to project manager in a traditional life cycle, but he is not the project manager. In a traditional life cycle, the hierarchy is followed. Here no hierarchy is followed. He acts as a coach. He will be hand holding the team member. If the team member is not having experience, it is the responsibility of the Scrum Master to hand hold a team member and to see to that the team member is working fine. Then the product backlogs will be refined, and the Scrum Master will be holding a daily Scrum meeting with these team members, with the members whoever is associated with the project, and based on after the daily Scrum meeting, the product backlogs refinement will take place, and that will be also be part of the sprint. So iterate incremental development and delivery. So at the end of the sprint, a potentially releasable increment, or as I said, the minimum marketable feature will get delivered. So after delivery, at the end of each and every sprint, you have a sprint review meeting, and after sprint review meeting, you have a sprint retrospective meeting. In the retrospective meeting only, you will be a person will be learning from experiences. So learning from experience, you call it as sprint retrospective meeting. So this is what you see in a Scrum framework. Hope the Scrum framework is clear. It is very important. Wherever you go, you are supposed to keep this diagram in mind so that you can answer any question to anyone at ease. Then let us see how a Scrum process works. So over here you have a product backlog. As said, it has been taken up, placed in the sprints, and if it is to be placed in the same sprint and if you are not completed, it becomes a sprint backlog. Sprint duration will be of 30 days or 14 days, and if it is of 14 days, 30 days in the sense 24/7, 24 hours and 7 days a week. So 24 hours in a day, and at the end of sprint you get working increment of the software. So this is the overview diagram of a sprint process, and this is the detailed diagram of a Scrum process framework. And let us see the rotation of roles. My dear students, I said here in this diagram you have a development team, but this development team wherein these people, what sort of roles that they follow is different. So here rotation of roles. At one instance, this particular team at the first sprint, see the numbers, as the diagram is a black and white diagram, see the numbers, one grayscale diagram, see the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there are 6 members, out of which first 4 are said to be developers, 5 and 6 are said to be testers in sprint 1, whereas in sprint 2, see the numbers, 5 and 6 have come to the development era. So they start their coding work, 5, 6, 3, 4 start their coding work, 1 and 2 becomes the tester, that is sprint 2. Going on, moving ahead to sprint 3, in sprint 3, 1, 2, 5, 6 is into development, 3 and 4 are into testing. What does it mean? The roles have been rotated, the roles have been shifted, so that everyone should know everything. As far as the Scrum framework is concerned, a person, he should be competent in developing, he should be competent in testing, he should be competent in maintaining quality, in checking for quality. So that is what the rotation of roles denote. Then the release burn down chart. A release burn down chart provides an overview of the release progress by plotting the remaining workload, often referred to as the remaining effort that is available in Scrum. This is a release burndown chart. Here you have the story points and here you have the sprints. In the story point and sprint, so initially you had this thing, 200 story points was there initially. As days progresses, as the sprints gets completed, these are all sprints. At the end of first sprint, 200 would have come to 190. At the end of second sprint, 190 would have come to 170. At the end of third sprint, 170 would have come to, at the end of fourth sprint, 170 would have come to 150. So, which means the work that has been completed. This shows the progress. This shows the points remaining. As it lowers down, only these many points are remaining. Only these many work is to be completed. That is called as release breakdown. Then next, what is a sprint burn down? A sprint burn down chart makes the work of the team visible. It is a graphical representation that shows the rate at which the work is completed and how much of work remains to be done. The chart slopes downwards over sprint duration and across the story points completed. As we can see a sprint burn down chart over here, this is said to be the day velocity, and when the progress, this is said to be the progress of work that is to be carried out, and this is said to be an ideal curve. Wherein, are you able to map the ideal curve? Definitely not. In the industry, mapping it to the ideal curve, it is pretty difficult, which means it results in the product is slow, the progress is slow. So here when it comes to the sprint duration, at this particular juncture, it claims that we are slow by so and so days. So everything has been determined in the sprint burn down. Then next is about the teams, co-located team and distributed team. What is a co-located team? Supposing you have an office in one part of Chennai, if you have an office in the other part of Chennai with a distance of 10 kilometers and you have one other office in Chennai at a distance of 20 kilometers, then if you wanted to meet face to face, then you can call everyone because it is all at a viable distance. Such a team you call it as a co-located team. And then is a distributed team. What is a distributed team? If you have an office at Chennai, the other office at Delhi, the other office at California, the other office at Melbourne, which means you cannot call the team members to have a face to face discussion. Other than that, we have also video conferencing nowadays, but even then that team, such a team becomes a distributed team. So the challenges in a distributed team is, here you have a cultural difference, you have a language difference, you have a communication difference and time difference. Because for us, for in Chennai, if you are going to work out, it will be daytime. For people in California, it will be a night time. For people in Australia, the time frame, it will be different. So that issue we have with respect to a distributed team, with respect to a Scrum team. Then next is about the retrospective meeting and the requirements. Retrospective meeting enables the team members to review their immediate past performance critically and collectively to learn the lessons. The requisites of retrospective meeting are: meeting should start and end up in a stipulated time. Time boxing is a major theme that is to be considered. Whiteboards, markers and mics should be effectively utilized. Action points from the product owners have to be derived, and every task of discussion completed during meeting has to be displayed in the board in order to avoid repetitive discussion. Then let us see the advantages and disadvantages of using Scrum. Advantage of using a Scrum is, Scrum framework is fast moving and it is worth spending money on it. Scrum framework works by dividing the large product into small sub products. It is like a divide and conquer strategy. In Scrum, customer satisfaction is very important. Scrum is adaptive in nature because it have short sprints. As Scrum framework rely on constant feedback, therefore the quality of product increases in less amount of time. Let us see few disadvantages of using Scrum. Scrum framework do not allow changes into their sprint. Scrum framework is not fully described model. If you want to adopt it, you need to fill in the framework with your own details like XP, Kanban, DSDM. DSDM is dynamic system development method. It is one of the agile methodology. So it can be difficult for a Scrum to plan, structure and organize a project that lacks a clear definition, and that is the reason at the initial slide I said Scrum is a project management approach. It is a project management approach. So the daily Scrum meetings and frequent reviews require substantial resources. That is, you need to, the people have to come on time, go on time, and they need to be present. So these are some of the disadvantages of using Scrum. So now let us summarize this session. We saw about the list of meetings available in Scrum, and then we saw about the sprint, we saw about Scrum frameworks, what are the Scrum tools available, and we saw about the advantages of Scrum, disadvantages of using a Scrum framework. Thank you.